My family forgot my 30th birthday. 3 hours later, they watched the news and realized I had just bought his biggest competitor. I woke up on my birthday to the sound of nothing. No buzz from my phone. No missed calls. No half-hearted happy birthday texts sent out of obligation. Just silence, clean, uninterrupted, and painfully familiar. I lay there for a moment staring at the ceiling, convincing myself it was still early. People had jobs. Meetings. Lives. Someone would remember. I checked my phone anyway. Nothing. By mid-morning, the silence had started to feel deliberate. I scrolled through social media and saw my family active in the group chat, photos being shared, plans being finalized, but not one message was for me. Around noon, I finally sent a short text to my mom. Thanks for the birthday wishes. It wasn't sarcasm. It was a test. 2 hours later, she replied with a red heart emoji and an apology that felt copy-pasted from every year before. They were busy, she said. Today was his big day. The celebration had taken over everything. We'll make it up to you later. Maybe next week. Maybe next year. Next year. That was when it clicked. This wasn't about forgetting a date. This was about priority. About who mattered when something important was happening and who didn't. I sat alone at my kitchen table, a cold cup of coffee in front of me, listening to the quiet I'd learned to live with. What they didn't know, what none of them had bothered to ask, was that while they were planning a party, I had been planning something else entirely. My birthday week wasn't empty. It was full of contracts, signatures, late-night calls, and a deal so large it had taken months of silence to protect. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone back. I got dressed, opened my laptop, and went over the final documents one more time. Because while my family had forgotten my birthday without hesitation, the world I was building didn't forget me at all. And in just a few hours, neither would they. Looking back, I can't honestly say my family forgetting my birthday shocked me. It hurt, but it didn't surprise me. Because by the time I turned 30, being overlooked wasn't an accident anymore. It was a pattern. It started small. A graduation they said they'd attend, then canceled last minute because something came up. A job milestone reduced to a distracted nod over dinner. Conversations that drifted away the moment I mentioned my work. As if my life existed on a lower volume than everyone else's. They never said I didn't matter. They just behaved like I didn't. Whenever relatives asked about me, my parents filled the silence with guesses. She's still figuring things out. She's between things. She's doing something online. The truth was, they never actually knew because they never asked. And after a while, I stopped offering. I learned early that enthusiasm made them uncomfortable. Explaining my projects felt like bragging. Sharing wins felt pointless. So I adapted. I answered questions politely. I changed the subject. I showed up when invited and left quietly when I wasn't noticed. I became very good at being present without being seen. Meanwhile, life didn't slow down for my silence. I worked longer hours. I took bigger risks. I made decisions that scared me and followed through anyway. I built something real brick by brick. Contract by contract, without applause, without backup, without a safety net. And the strange thing was, the quieter I became at home, the louder my life grew everywhere else. My family assumed my silence meant stagnation. That if I wasn't constantly updating them, nothing important was happening. They mistook privacy for failure, distance for weakness, and because I didn't correct them, they grew comfortable with that version of me, the one who didn't need attention, didn't demand space, didn't compete. But silence isn't emptiness. It's often preparation. By the time they forgot my birthday, I wasn't waiting for them to change. I already knew who they were when nothing was at stake. What I didn't know yet was how quickly they'd change once everything was. I almost didn't go. Standing in front of my mirror that evening, I told myself every reasonable excuse I could think of. I was tired. It had been a long week. I didn't owe anyone my presence. But beneath all of that was a quieter, more dangerous thought that maybe this time would be different. Maybe if I showed up, someone would notice. Maybe someone would remember. So I went. The restaurant was exactly what you'd expect for a celebration like his. Private room. Soft lighting. Expensive wine already breathing on the table. A banner stretched across one wall congratulating him on his latest achievement. Laughter spilled into the hallway before I even stepped inside. No one saw me at first. I slipped into an empty chair near the back, smoothing my dress, scanning the room. My parents were glowing, moving from table to table like hosts at a victory lap. My siblings were dressed impeccably, holding court, retelling stories that ended with applause. This wasn't just a dinner. It was a performance, and I hadn't been cast in it. My mother eventually noticed me and came over, kissing my cheek distractedly. "I'm so glad you could make it," she said, already glancing over my shoulder. No mention of my birthday. No pause. Just relief that I'd filled the seat. As the night went on, speeches began. Glasses clinked. His name was repeated again and again, each time followed by admiration. My father thanked his wife. He praised my siblings. He spoke about loyalty, ambition, family. I listened carefully, waiting for my name. It never came. I sat there, smiling politely, applauding on cue, feeling myself shrink into the chair. I wasn't angry. That was the strangest part. I felt confirmed. Like something I'd suspected for years had finally been stated out loud without words. They hadn't chosen this celebration over my birthday by accident. They had chosen it because, to them, it mattered more. As dessert was served and conversation grew louder, I realized I wasn't invisible, I was optional. And there's a difference. One you don't argue with. One you simply remember. I picked up my glass, took a slow sip, and told myself the truth I'd been avoiding all night. I didn't come here to be celebrated. I came here to see clearly. The mood shifted after dinner, once the plates were cleared and the second round of drinks arrived. That was when confidence turned into performance. He stood a little taller, laughed a little louder, and started talking the way people do when they believe the future is already theirs. Someone asked about the next quarter. Another joked about competitors trying and failing to keep up. He waved a hand dismissively, smiling. "There's really only one company we even watch anymore," he said, leaning back in his chair. "And honestly? They're barely standing." A few people chuckled. Someone else asked which one. He said the name casually like it wasn't worth remembering. His competition, the one he was certain wouldn't survive the year. "They've been bleeding clients," he continued. "Bad leadership. No vision. We're already preparing for when they collapse. It's just a matter of timing." Laughter rippled around the table. Glasses clinked in agreement. My family joined in easily. Nods. Smiles. The kind that comes from believing they were standing on the winning side of history. My mother leaned toward a relative and whispered something that made them laugh. My siblings exchanged looks of shared amusement. I stayed quiet. Not because I was intimidated. Not because I didn't have something to say. But because there was nothing I needed to add. Every word he spoke was tightening something he couldn't see. Every boast was building momentum I didn't have to touch. Someone suggested turning on the TV just to see if his promotion had made the news. He laughed and waved it off but didn't stop them. Why would he? This was his night. Everything was aligned. Success felt permanent when you were standing in it. The screen flickered to life in the corner of the room. Business news. Stock tickers. A familiar anchor's voice filling the space between conversations. I took a slow breath and rested my hands in my lap, perfectly still. Because the truth about traps is this: you don't have to set them. Sometimes all you have to do is wait. And let someone else walk straight into what they already built. The television volume rose just enough to cut through the laughter. Breaking news in the tech and finance sector. The anchor said, his tone sharpened by urgency. A major acquisition was finalized just hours ago. One analysts are already calling a market-shifting move. A few conversations slowed. Someone joked, "Hey, maybe this is you," and nodded toward him. He smiled, indulgent, already halfway convinced it was. The screen shifted to a familiar skyline. Then to a headline stretched across the bottom of the broadcast. Acquisition confirmed. Competitor bought in all-cash deal. The room quieted. Forks paused. Glasses hovered midair. The anchor continued. The company, long rumored to be struggling, has been acquired in a $1.8 billion transaction by a private investment firm, ending months of speculation about its future. A photo appeared. My photo. Professional. Composed. taken months earlier during an interview no one at this table had ever watched. My name followed beneath it, crisp and unmistakable. Age included. Title listed. Words I had never spoken out loud in this room. For a second, no one spoke, not because they didn't understand but because they did. The anchor kept talking. The buyer, known for her low-profile strategy and aggressive growth model, finalized the deal earlier today. Sources confirm the acquisition was completed in full cash, positioning the firm as a dominant force in the industry. Someone whispered my name. Not the way they used to, careless and half-remembered, but slowly, carefully. Like they were afraid it might disappear if said too loudly. The camera cut to footage from the signing. A conference room. Executives standing, hands being shaken. And there I was, seated at the center of the table, calm, focused, entirely at home in a world they'd never imagined me in. The anchor added almost casually, industry experts note the timing is particularly significant, as the newly acquired company's largest competitor recently announced an internal expansion tied to a major leadership promotion. The room went completely still, all eyes turned toward me. My father's face drained of color, his smile frozen mid-expression. My mother stared at the screen, then at me, then back again like she was trying to reconcile two realities that refused to align. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I didn't speak. I let the television finish the sentence none of them had ever bothered to ask me. With this acquisition, the competitive landscape shifts immediately. The TV was turned off seconds later, but it didn't matter. The truth had already arrived. And it had spoken clearly, without needing my permission. The silence didn't last long. It never does. Questions came first, soft at the edges, carefully worded, as if the wrong tone might make everything collapse. Is that really you? When did this happen? Why didn't you tell us? They spoke over one another, eyes darting between my face and the dark screen, as if the proof might reappear if they looked hard enough. My mother was the first to reach for me. Sophie, she said, her voice suddenly gentle, why didn't you say something? As if the absence of words had been my failure alone. My father cleared his throat, still trying to regain control of a night that had slipped out of his hands. This affects a lot of people, he said carefully. You should have warned me. That was when I realized what scared him most wasn't the surprise, it was the loss of certainty. Someone finally remembered. Wait, my sister said slowly. Wasn't your birthday last week? I nodded. It was. I was loved offer avizode. The room shifted again, this time with discomfort. Apologies followed, rushed and uneven. We didn't mean to forget. Things have just been busy. We'll make it up to you. The words landed softly, but they were too late to matter. I didn't do this to hurt anyone, I said calmly, when they paused long enough for me to speak. My voice didn't shake. I did it because it was the right decision. It was smart. It was necessary. My father looked at me like he didn't recognize me. You knew this would change everything. Yes, I said. And you still didn't know me. That was the truth. Not the money. Not the headlines. The fact that they had lived so close to my life for so long and never seen it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I didn't need to. Their panic said enough. Their apologies confirmed what I'd already accepted. They hadn't missed my birthday by accident. They'd missed me until it became impossible to ignore. And now that they finally saw me, I wasn't sure they liked what it revealed. I didn't stay to finish the night. There was nothing left to explain, and no version of the conversation that would suddenly turn years of absence into understanding. I stood, thanked everyone politely, and walked out before anyone could stop me. Not in anger. Not in triumph. Just with certainty. The air outside felt lighter. Quieter. Honest. A few days later, I celebrated my birthday the way I should have from the beginning. No speeches. No expectations. Just a small table, good food, and people who had shown up without needing proof of my worth. They remembered the date. They asked questions and waited for the answers. It felt simple. It felt real. My family called after that. More than once. Some apologized again. Some wanted to talk about the business. Some suddenly wanted to catch up. I listened when I could. I set boundaries when I needed to. Rebuilding trust, if it happens at all, won't come from shock or headlines. It will come from consistency, something we're all still learning. What surprised me most wasn't how quickly they noticed me once the world did. It was how little I needed that attention anymore. For so long, I thought being seen by them would feel like relief, like closure. But it turned out peace doesn't come from being chosen by people who only look up when something shines. It comes from choosing yourself quietly, repeatedly, without permission. I didn't buy a company to prove a point. I didn't succeed to make anyone regret anything. I built my life because it mattered to me, even when no one else was watching. And if there's one thing I know now, it's this: anyone can celebrate you when success is loud. The ones who matter are the people who remember you when it isn't. That's the difference between being admired and being loved. If you stayed with me until the end of this story, I want to say thank you, not just for listening, but for seeing me. So many of us grow up trying to earn a place in rooms that should have welcomed us without conditions. If you saw yourself in my silence, in the birthdays overlooked, in the achievements dismissed until they became impossible to ignore, then this story belongs to you too. I don't tell this story for praise. I share it because I know how easy it is to mistake neglect for normal, and how dangerous it is to wait your whole life for validation from people who only look up when success is loud. My advice is simple, but not easy. Build your life anyway. Do the work quietly if you have to. Protect your peace before you protect appearances, and never confuse being ignored with being insignificant. If my choices resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think I handled it the right way? What would you have done differently? Leave a comment, I read them, and your perspective matters more than you think. If you want more stories like this, stories about boundaries, self-respect, and choosing yourself, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. You're not invisible. And you never were.